thought, maybe I need to go to the emergency room. So I packed up my bag, I went downstairs, I didn't call an ambulance. I'm like, I hailed a cab, and I went to Lenox Hill Hospital, and they're like, oh yeah, your appendix needs to come out, okay? So immediately, in there, like, the first thing is that, you go through the emergency room process, but they give me a lot of scans, right? So they put me right into the CT scan machine, I believe it was, the CT scan, they take the x-rays, so you have all of this really high quality testing and machines to figure out what's going on. And then once they said, oh yeah, we think your appendix needs to come out, I live downtown Manhattan, and so Lenox Hill's emergency room downtown is away from the main hospital, which is on the Upper East Side. So they said, well, we don't do the surgery here, we're going to take you in an ambulance to the Upper East Side. And I said, oh no, I'll just take a cab. It's okay, I said, I'll take the cab. And they're like, oh no, you can't take the cab. You have to get in the ambulance. Okay? And so then once I'm in the Lenox Hill Hospital, they get me a room, I'm in the hospital, and the doctor, one of the radiologists says, I didn't like the first picture. Right? So radiologists are the doctors who read like MRIs and CT scans and x-rays. When the radiologist at the hospital said, I don't really like the picture that they took downtown. I can't really see what's going on in your appendix. So I'm going to send you for another CT scan, right? So that's a lot of radiation. But they need to see exactly what's going on. And I remember I went for the scan, they wheeled me back up to my room. The surgeon came in like half an hour later and she said, okay, we're going to do this right now because it's about to burst. Okay, your appendix is about to burst. I'm like, oh, okay. I said, are you sure we need to do this? And she said, I'm sure. I'm your surgeon. I'm Dr. Wong. Nice to meet you. Let's go. And so they took me downstairs. They took out my appendix. Sent me home in a couple of days. I was home. And then over winter break, I started to have pain in the same area. I'm like, oh, my appendix is out. This can't possibly be my appendix. But I went back to the emergency room, and it turns out they had the machinery there again to do all of these scans to figure out what was going on. And it turns out I had a series of complications from my appendix surgery. Okay? So the bottom line is that we have a lot of high-tech machinery to do scans and to do diagnostic testing in the United States. And we have a lot of fast innovation that enables us to do those types of tests. And we just might use that high-tech care more frequently than in other countries. Medical prices, another hypothesis. Medical prices are simply what drug companies charge you to buy drugs, what doctors charge you to see you in the office, what surgeons charge you for doing surgery. I have to look and find out how much they charged me for my appendectomy. But one hypothesis is just simply that medical prices are higher in the United States and rising faster in the United States than in other developed countries. And that causes our per capita spending to be higher. Lastly, someone else pays. So a major thing that we're going to be talking about this morning is that in the United States, we have two significant public programs that help pay, governmental programs that help pay for health insurance, and those are Medicare, which are for the 65 plus population, so that's government paid for the older population, the Medicare program. And then our other public program where we use state and federal tax dollars to pay for health insurance is the Medicaid program. And the Medicaid program serves mostly low-income and poor Americans in this country, okay? So those are our two major public programs funded by tax dollars, okay? In the United States, though, significant number of the population that don't fall into those categories, we have private insurance. We usually get that through our employers, okay? So I have a health insurance through too, as a state employee, my healthcare insurance is amazing. Like, I pay significant premiums, but Rutgers subsidizes my premiums, so I have incredible health insurance coverage, incredible prescription drug coverage, which is important for me because I've got multiple conditions. And it is kind of surprising when I go to the doctors and my copay to see a doctor is $15, right? Which is pretty low, especially in Manhattan. Okay, so when I see my primary care doctor, it's $15. When I see a specialist, it's $15. So this idea that the private health insurance company that I use, in my case, my health care coverage is through Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield. The fact that Blue Cross and Blue Shield is picking up the majority of that cost, and I'm only paying $15, leads me to consume more, okay, healthcare than I would if I had to pay the entire visit every single time. So in the United States, everybody write this down because this is going to be a concept that's going to come up through the slides this morning. The United States relies much more on private health insurance, which are private companies making money to insure people, usually through their employers, as well as citizens themselves paying out of pocket, then through our public programs like Medicare and Medicaid, which are funded by government dollars, okay? In other countries, as we'll see, as we'll talk through these points today, in other countries, those countries rely much more significantly on public programs to pay for health insurance, okay? And their private healthcare markets are very, very small. That's a huge difference, and we'll see that theme come up. Yes?
Other countries rely on
Public programs, much more significantly, like in the United States, which are Medicare and Medicaid. So these are several hypotheses, 7 hypotheses about why we might be spending more, okay? So now we've generated our ideas about why we might be spending more in the United States. So let's go through and see what kind of evidence there is for each hypothesis. The first is that the United States is wealthier, so we simply demand more care because we've got more money. Well, one way to equalize how wealthy we are across all countries is to look at healthcare spending as a percentage of gross domestic product, where GDP, gross domestic product, is a measure of a country's wealth. So if we just look at healthcare spending and we attempt to control for or equalize wealth across nations, where does the United States fall? Is it simply in the midst of or in the group of all of the other countries? Okay. So here we've just equalized healthcare spending, and we've taken that as a percentage of the gross domestic product, which is a measure of wealth across these countries. And you can see again, all of these other nations are kind of bunching up together, and you can see how much of their GDP they're spending on healthcare. And you can see once again that even if you just look at healthcare as a percentage of GDP, as a percentage of wealth, the United States is still spending a lot more, right? The United States is still spending a lot more as a percentage of GDP. So this means that the wealth and explanation doesn't have support. Okay, this is one indication that the first hypothesis that we laid out, that this is all a function of wealth, doesn't have support, because when we equalize this measure, taking healthcare spending as a percentage of GDP, we still see the United States way up here. So that leads us to conclude that there isn't a lot of support for that. Well, the United States is just wealthier, and therefore we spend more. Right? No support for that hypothesis. The second hypothesis was what? What'd you write down?
population is older?
Population is older. Maybe it is just the case that our population is older, and that we just simply spend more because our population is just a lot older than those in other developed countries. So let's look at the evidence for that. This graph shows you the percent of the population aged 65 and older in 2012. And again, here are all of these OECD countries, and here's the median. Okay. You can see that the median percentage of the population aged 65 and older is 16.5%. And the United States is where? It's a different color, right? So 13.7%, okay, in 2012. This says that the population, the percentage of our population aged 65 and older is actually smaller, right, than that in all of these other industrialized countries. So this takes away or knocks down some of the evidence or decreases the potential explanatory power that this is simply an aging question. Okay? That the United States is simply older and therefore we spend a lot more. Okay, this graph says no. The third explanation that we looked at was disease prevalence and perhaps we were sicker overall as a population. This gives us self-reported diagnosed disease prevalence in the United States in 10 European nations, non-institutionalized adults aged 50 and older, and we're looking at a variety of health issues or health diseases. Heart disease, high blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, diabetes, chronic lung disease, asthma, cancer, and osteoporosis. What does this tell you about the prevalence of these diseases in the United States versus these other countries in Europe? What's going on in this graph? Yes?
Well, it's significantly higher than that of Europe.
Good, good. So we can see in this particular graphic that we do have a lot more heart disease. So the United States is in light blue and Europe is in that purple. We have more heart disease, a lot more high blood pressure, a lot more cholesterol, stroke, a lot more diabetes, a lot more chronic lung disease, a little bit more asthma, a lot more cancer, okay, and a lot more osteoporosis. So what does this tell us? This tells us that perhaps the United States is a little sicker than other European countries, and that's driving higher levels of per capita